Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Jim Fight, Jeff Charles, and Scott Cosenza. And this is the Conservative 5, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. On today's episode, one toke over the political line. Join the Conservative 5 as we discuss the latest mess in the Golden State in our segment, California Says Goodbye to Independent Contractors. We'll tackle the rumor that one unpopular gal in Wyoming is seeking a lofty perch in Liz Cheney for president, and then roll right into the latest debate in marijuana legislation. And finally, we let the fur fly in our Just for Fun Volume 16 segment. All this and more coming up in this edition of the Conservative 5. Well, folks, the gig is up. Police for independent contractors trying to do business in California. After months of delays, the law passed in 2019 is now in full force. And what the cool kids call the gig economy is getting hammered. It's called AB5 and requires most companies to reclassify freelancers and contingent workers as full-time employees. And is the Golden State vying for most bloated employment law status, or what? Andrew and Scott have been on top of this legislation since proposed, passed, and put into law in 2020. Andrew, you're up first.
Yeah, this is one of those laws that are championed by special interests and then hated by the common people. If you look at the statements, there's such a disconnect between the unions and the truckers and the several associations representing these truckers. I'll allow my distinguished colleague, law and order colleague, Scott Cosenza, to dive into the legal aspects of the situation. But from a pure economic standpoint, it's a powder keg waiting to go off. Sarah, you reported on how, 70% of the truckers are situated on the West Coast in Los Angeles, Oakland, Long Beach. And guess what? That's where the supply chain crisis is heading. When this law was first passed, you saw all these truckers fleeing the state, or they just abandoned the industry. And now today you hear the industry saying there's a trucker shortage happening, and that's amplifying the entire supply chain crisis. And that's not only that. I mean, you look at the other factors too involving truckers, that this is just a cherry on top. They're dealing with high diesel prices. The layoffs are growing because of the high diesel costs. The recession's on the horizon. So shipping is not as ubiquitous as it was, just a year ago. So from economics, the ABI 5 is just disastrous for both the truckers and for the rest of the gig economy. Because when I first reported on this, you saw a lot of freelance writers, as an example, they lost their jobs because these companies wouldn't want to hire them as full-time employees with all the perks and benefits and compensation packages. So overall, bad idea. And I'll allow my colleague Scott to dive into the legal parameters.
Scott, you're up. What's going on?
Oh, it's just a total corruption story. That's what it is. It's nothing more than that. And the victims of the corruption are now most peakly the truckers who are revolting. This was an attempt by union organizers and cab companies to smite Uber and Lyft because they were stealing their lunchbox, basically through competition, of course, which was not abided by those who are going to get less of their ill-gotten pie, basically, right? So if you own a cab company in Los Angeles, you can't survive with Uber because you probably provide poor service because of your license. You've got the monopoly, and that's what's happened. And they captured those legislators, got the bill passed, and the truckers didn't have the pull to do anything about it. And their union, representatives for the big companies, they don't care if the independent truckers get. Well, there's a word not printable for our show there, but that's what's happening, and they're just having to suffer through it.
Well, so when you look at it, what my take is that they're fleeing California and heading to states that are a lot less free of strict regulations and laws. Arizona, or perhaps Nevada, or Texas.
Or just about any state,
or just about any state in California.
You've got almost 49 other options.
Yeah.
Jeff, you've kind of lived a lot of places. What say you?
Yeah, Sarah, this is reason number 943 why I'm glad that I left California a long time ago, because this is already hurting people. I mean, I have a friend who was a writer like us, and she had to move her residence to a different state while still trying to maintain ties to California because that's where her family is, because of this stupid law, which, by the way, this isn't going to stop here. they want to make this national. I mean, there was already a proposal at the federal level that was basically like a copy and paste of what California is doing right now. It's a disastrous law that limits choices. I mean, it takes away agency from people who want to work as independent contractors, who want to essentially have their own business and be their own business, and to be able to choose how they do their work. But that's what progressive policies do. I mean, they narrow down your options to where you're basically forced to live and work the way that they want you to. At least this is what happens when they get their way. It's almost like California is intent on driving people out, because California has been losing people over the past 10 years, about 7.5 million since 2010. There's a reason for that, and they haven't figured it out yet.
And actually, if I may add to Jeff's point here, the American Trucker Association, they recently forecast that the trucker industry is going to have a shortage of 160,000 drivers within the next 8 years. So, I mean, this is just going to exacerbate the issue.
Well, and where are all the ports? The 3 largest ports in the United States are in California, correct? So how the heck are we going to get...
At the time of this broadcast, that's true.
B?
We'll see.
Yeah, that may change.
We'll see if that
true.
lasts another decade.
Might have to have some
Sarah.
oceanfront property somewhere else soon.
Yeah.
Jimmy, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, this is Jeff talked about the California politicians they haven't figured it out yet. They're not going to. There's this great disconnect. And I don't know if anybody else is a Mel Brooks fan, but Scott actually put me in mind of a quote from his History of the World Part 1. There's a scene where the guy comes up to the king and he says, "Sire, the people are revolting." And the king goes, "Yeah, tell me about it." And when Scott said revolting, I was like, yeah, well, that's the disconnect. I mean, these statist politicians, they've never seen an activity they don't want to tax or a pie they don't want to stick their finger in. And I'll quote another Andrew that I know our Andrew is familiar with, Andrew Heaton. Just stop fiddling with it.
But you know what's funny? When this law was first passed and there was so much pushback, one of the champions of the legislation, her name escapes me right now, and she was pretty much saying, well, we know what's best for workers. We want to protect workers from being exploited, and we want to, just ensure workers, are getting compensated, completely forgetting about a lot of these people enjoy this independent contractor status. A lot of these workers enjoy participating in the gig economy because it gives them, choice and flexibility. And, that was one of the reasons why those truckers left in 2019. That's one of their major gripes, is because they wanted the flexibility that trucking offers. So it's just this fatal conceit of all these Democratic politicians, particularly in California, possess, and it's frustrating for supposedly one of the world's largest economies, the Golden State.
Well,
There are some do-gooders and some genuine actors on that side, even if they're paternalistic, Andrew. But rest assured, the real money and push behind this effort is simply to capture the marketplace. It's not about the good of anybody except the pocketbooks of the people that are trying to steal money out of Californians' wallets and stuff it in their own.
Hey,
See, one thing-
that said,
one thing
who better qualified to say they know best about how to stop people from being taken advantage of by the government than the government itself, right?
These elites always have to save us from ourselves, don't they? That's how the progressive mind thinks. But I would actually wonder, we're already dealing with supply chain issues. How is this going to affect it? I mean, I'm sure Andrew can answer that question.
Well, yeah, I mean, big time. I mean, if you in the early 2022, whenever there was that Omicron variant, you had a lot of employee absenteeism. So the traffic jam, the backlogs were just increased during that period, and they're still trying to play catch up. And then also, as Sarah reported, you're going into the back to school season, you're going to the holiday shopping season, and those ports, they have yet to be cleared up, despite the federal government's 24/7 mandate they imposed earlier this year. So the supply chain crisis, I mean, it's not improving whatsoever. I mean, you look at the freight data coming from China, and the only positive you could see from it, I guess it's not even much a positive, is that a recession would resolve this problem. But it's a recession killing the economy, which is that's not sad economics, but that's Bidenomics.
Well, folks, as the saying goes, you can put lipstick on a piggy, but you know the rest. Liberty Nation will keep an eye on the possible spread of California's freelancing law, which will be a nightmare for independent contractors. Thanks, panel. Well, Liz Cheney is set to lose her re-election bid by a landslide in the August 2nd primary. The Wyoming electorate has seemingly soured on the Trump-hating representative. Recent polls are hitting her political career might be over in a few days. She's currently behind, wait for it, 22 points. So what's a gal to do when your party thinks you might just be something stuck to their boot? Well, Liz Cheney has an idea swimming around in her head. Why not run for president of the United States? Good grief, we live in a wild political world. Are Lizzie's days over, Jeff Charles? What do you think?
Yes, they are. And we saw this coming from a mile away. You didn't need a crystal ball for this. You didn't need Miss Cleo. I mean, yeah, she's gone. These people are so self-unaware that they don't know how to read the room. I mean, if you look at the other people who were more anti-Trump, or even some of the representatives that voted to impeach him, they're not all in trouble. But when you base your entire platform on Orange Man bad, the base is going to reject you. You are not in line with what people want. Sure, you can have your issues with Trump. I mean, there are people out there who in the Republican Party who criticize Trump, but they also recognize where the party is going, and they're even recognizing why he was necessary. People like Liz Cheney can't figure that out. And if she's even thinking about running for the White House, that just further shows how self-unaware she is and how much she doesn't know the base. Does she even talk to the average Republican? Does she do that anymore, or is she just sitting in her ivory tower? She must be, because she would know not to do what she's doing, and yet she's doing it anyway.
Wow. I don't know if anybody else can add to that.
Well, maybe
I would just say that there are a few Republicans and a few Democrats out there that are waiting to stand in line and send Liz Cheney a check, and she's going to take it from them. And that's about the best that she can do right now, is just feed off of this sliver of folks who somehow think that she's a noble actor rather than somebody who's, aggrandizing herself.
And I would also say that for any of the youngins watching, Miss Cleo was a 1-800 psychic hotline whose career was over a long time ago. But please continue, James.
Oh yeah, she didn't see it coming, which tells you a lot about her skills as a psychic. But no, on the one hand, the whole "I'm not Trump" thing worked out great for Joe Biden, but also he's a Democrat. I really don't like. How delusional do you have to be as a Republican to think that you're going to capture enough of the base to actually,
Wyoming,
never mind the fact that 70-something million
from Maryland,
Republicans voted for
Wyoming
Trump.
Republican.
Huh?
I said, and a Republican from Wyoming, not Maryland. Like, I mean,
right. Like, I mean, how delusional do you have to be to think that you're going to capture the 70 some odd million people that voted for Trump by saying, "Hey, I'm not Trump"?
And she's she's so desperate that she's urging a lot of Democrats in Wyoming to transition to Republican just so that she can grab enough votes, begging, saying, only I can help stop Trump. And who knows if that's even working. But, it's utterly laughable that Cheney would have any shot. And that would be a pun intended if we were talking about her father, Dick Cheney, at even winning a seat in the White House. Any presidential run that she would have would be like Joe Walsh's in 2020. It was just a publicity stuff that nobody really cared for. It just fell flat. And that poll, I think Sarah mentioned about it. She's losing about 20 points to Harriet Hagman. So I mean, that's just an indictment. She's not popular. Nobody likes her. I don't know why the Republican Party even voted for her in 2017 in the first place. She's just like her father. She's a neocon, and I'm glad Dave Patterson's not on our panel because I'm sure we would have a discussion about Dick Cheney, as Scott would remember.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
You look at Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, right? When he ran, he didn't wrap his arms around Trump. He wasn't saying Trump, but he wasn't rejecting him either. He played it even. He played it. You don't have to kiss the ring to get the base to support you. But what you can't do is go directly against what they want and expect to win. It's political stupidity. I don't get it.
No Cheneys in politics, no Bushes in politics, no Clinton in politics. There you go.
Hey, maybe she has a shot. Maybe if she leaves the Republican Party and she joins this new quote unquote third party that Andrew Yang's got going on. That
I was just about to say she could maybe make a home with Christine Todd Whitman and Andrew Yang with party that has no principles announced. I mean,
spice things up a little bit.
I think it's preposterous that we're even discussing that she may run for president like anybody, like she's going to get a single electoral vote. She could run, and I mean, I could run and I get 1,000 votes. I mean, it's.
I'd vote for you.
So what? Just as approach, just for somebody not voting for the incumbent or something like that. But the idea that there's maybe if DC, basically big box journalists were forced to vote in a Republican primary, that's one that Liz Cheney could win. Other than that, it's a dead letter.
You heard it here first, folks. Scott Cosenza just announced his candidacy for president.
Scott Cosenza. He's the law and order candidate from Virginia.
Mail your policy
Coming to get you.
suggestions on the back of a $20
But at least
bill
his
and,
slogan
send it
isn't
in.
going to be "Orange Man Bad." I mean,
Yeah.
come on. At least we
More
can work
mean
with
tweets.
something there.
You could form our own party, Scott, to be the LOL party. So liberty over legislation.
There you
Oh,
go.
gosh.
I'm for it.
Oh boy. All right. Well, at this point, a White House run seems laughable, but should not be counted out altogether. In a world where we have murder hornets and monkeypox, Cheney 2024 might be the icing on the cake. Thanks, panel. After years of debate, it appears the federal government is close to legalizing marijuana. Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act, and I guess we all know what that opportunity part means, is under congressional consideration. If passed, it decriminalizes weed and allows for individual states to decide how best to regulate its use. Pun intended here. Is this legislation really a joint effort, or will it go up in smoke? Scott, what is the biggest hurdle legalizing weed faces?
Well, I'll take the question literally. It is not a joint effort, just to be clear. This is an effort by Chuck Schumer and Cory Booker and one other member of the Congress. They've introduced the bill without text associated with it. So if you go to, I think it's congress.gov and look up this bill, which was introduced by Booker, it'll just say there's been no text that's been submitted with it. Okay. Then if you kind of do the research, you can go to the Senate Democrat webpage where they do list a bill that is 296 pages long. Now, I have skimmed this bill, but I have not read 296 pages of it. And I suspect neither has Mr. Booker nor Mr. Schumer. So this is one of these things where it's so big, the actual sort of decriminalization, if you will, of weed is only a minor part of it. The rest of it is chock-a-block full of giveaways, special programs, and all kinds of layers of bureaucracy just crushing basically marijuana. They've done exactly the wrong thing, basically. And I suspect it'll go down and not pass because of all the kind of socialism that's built into this proposal rather than a simple, let's get the federal government out of prohibiting marijuana.
So why are we hearing on every cable news outlet, in every newspaper, it's a joint bipartisan effort? Why are we hearing that? What
Because
do you
that's
think,
the
Jeff?
narrative they want you to hear, Sarah. I mean, look,
Okay, that's simple enough.
there's two great noble ideas here, right? Let's get the federal government out of the tyranny of controlling other people's individual bodies, what you do with your own body, and while we're at it, let's say that this is something everybody wants. This is a bipartisan effort. The truth of the matter doesn't really matter. I mean, if you think politicians are too hung up on the truth, then you haven't really been paying attention to politics.
The legislation is filled with these sops towards, it's been communities of color that have been most negatively affected by marijuana prohibition. So we've got to pile on incentives for them. I'm shocked I didn't see anything regarding like trans women of color, just to like throw an additional popular, beneficiary, rather than just simply, if they really wanted to make marijuana federally legal, they could have a stripped down bill. They only need 10 U.S. senators. You could find 10 libertarian-ish, especially on weed, senators that would go along with a stripped down, pared down, simple. We're going to reclassify marijuana as something that is, legal. And then you'd get all the access points to banking, for instance, which is one of the things that keeps this sort of thing on the margin. But, the Reason Foundation, the publishers of Reason Magazine, they did this study recently, and they examined California's legalization scheme. And what they found was that the taxes and the costs associated with it are so high that I think at least a third or maybe even 2/3 of the marijuana sold in California is basically illegal weed. It's not sold through these shops because of the government imposition on legally being able to do so. And that's exactly the model that Schumer and Booker have adopted for their proposal here.
So yeah, and here's my thing. They were able to get the White House to fund the distribution of crack pipes in the Black community for racial equity, but Democrats despite saying that they champion Black people, can't pass a law legalizing marijuana when everybody, including conservatives, think it should be done. They don't really want to do this. And it's interesting to me that a lot of the resistance to this supposed bill is coming from Democrats themselves. This is just another one of those things that they were doing to try to gain favor because they're going to get their butts kicked in the upcoming congressional elections, and they want to always make it look like they care about communities of color, like Scott alluded to, but they really don't. They really don't. They could do this easily, and they're choosing not to. So that's the question. Why are they choosing not to?
Joe Biden does not favor legalizing or liberalizing our marijuana laws. He's been against it every time he's had an opportunity. He may say some things that are the opposite of it, but anytime he's actually had the opportunity to change the law or make a rule change about it, he has never lifted a finger. And in fact, a year ago today, or maybe a month and a year ago today, we were talking about these half a dozen or more Biden administration employees who got fired after moving their lives to D.C. to serve under the Biden administration when they were signaling that their past marijuana use wouldn't restrict their employment. So these are people who were going to be White House staffers, but because they used marijuana in the past, they got fired from their job. So Joe Biden is very much an anti-weed guy, and he doesn't favor legalization of marijuana.
I mean, do we really even know what he favors? He shakes hands with invisible people pretty frequently. So, I mean, honestly, what he says is always, always, always redefined by the White House minions that go, oh, well, he didn't mean he had cancer right now. He said he might have had cancer back in the day. I mean, how do you even know what the guy thinks?
Just look at what he does. More Black people are in jail or in prison because of Joe Biden than any KKK racist cop in the country.
And he's still doing it. And I'm glad you brought that up, Scott, because you're right. Biden is not for legalizing marijuana. It sounds like he still has the same beliefs he did back when he supported that crime bill.
That was all Joe.
I think legalizing marijuana should be a slam dunk, what with most of the public supporting such a measure. But then again, when you bring up all the other pork in that bill, I guess it's something that probably isn't going to go very far. Could be just a pipe dream. Sorry, couldn't resist. Thanks, panel. We are back with one of our most favorite Just for Fun segments. Contestants, ready yourselves for Andrew Moran's The Price Ain't Right. This should prove to be both difficult and amusing, as usual. Take it away, Mr. Moran.
Just before we begin, I'd like to say that I don't like hard tacos. I only like soft tacos. So anyone, please check the previous C5 segment. So hello and welcome to another installment of The Price Ain't Right, the game show that defines recession by a single word. Before we get to our lovely contestants, we have some devastating news. Because the U.S. economy is so bad right now, Bill and Hillary Clinton will need to share a room whenever they go on a vacation.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
But seriously, did you guys hear? The U.S. economy is such bad shape that Madonna has taken the time to start adopting children in the United States as opposed to Africa. Finally, I have some terrible news to share with you. It was a personal story of mine. A burglar broke into my house the other day, and he told me to give him all of my money. And I said to him, I would if you could lend me $50 first. So now let's get started. Since Liberty Nation is all about chivalry and politeness, let's begin with none other than the second most beautiful woman on the planet, the first being Lisa Donner, of course, Miss Sarah Cowgill. Since you're running your tractor on the farm, how much do you think the gallon of automotive diesel fuel is compared to last year?
Wow. I'm going to say 15% higher.
Oh, sorry. What is a dollar total in your estimate?
Oh, now you're going to get specific. Here, I think it's mid $5 range.
Mr. Fight, do you have experience in the wild? What is your take on diesel prices?
Diesel prices here in the wilds of Arkansas, about $5.15, $5.20. But I bet you off-road diesel is still hovering around, $4 or so.
The answer, $5.75 per gallon, up 77% from last year. They say that the price of diesel is so high because of all the gas coming out of politicians in Washington. So our next contestant enjoys walking on the beach, listening to Kenny G, and reading Ludwig Wittgenstein, the troublemaker himself, Jeff Charles. Jeff, since you and your missus enjoy quiet time in front of the fire eating strawberries and whipped cream as you troll everyone on Twitter, how much is a dry pint of strawberries compared to last year?
Strawberries.
We are laughing.
I don't even know who this Liechtenstein guy is. Anyway, but I digress. Okay, let's say do I have to give a dollar amount or?
Yes, dollar, please.
Dang. Let's go for $6.50.
And Mr. Cosenza, I don't know if you like strawberries with your vanilla ice cream. So how much would you estimate a dry pint of strawberries is?
$7. He said $6.50.
$6.50.
Jeff Charles at $6.50.
$6.51.
The price is surprisingly $2.31 according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This
organic?
is actually relatively unchanged from a year ago. Now, if you are a member of Fight Club,
you do not talk about Fight Club.
You will know the next guest I'm talking about. That's Mr. James Fight, the very model of a modern Grizzly Adams. Now, James, we know that your food is sourced from the woods, but when you are gracing supermarkets with your presence and joining the rest of us uncivilized folks, how much are you spending on a pound of coffee compared to last year?
Ooh, that's a tough one for me because I don't get my coffee from the supermarket. I actually I get Ethiopian Yirgacheffe from the local coffee house.
Well, isn't that special?
And it's about $8 a pound for me.
Miss Sarah Cowgill, when Andrew Moran is not bothering you on Slack, how much do you pay for coffee?
I'm gonna say about $7.75 a pound.
The answer is $5.79 per pound, up 25% from last year. And yours truly, Andrew Moran, told Scott Cosenza last year that coffee prices would soar, and he responded by buying crates of McDonald's coffee. So finally, our resident legal extraordinaire who does not chase ambulances for a living,
Better call Saul.
instead dazzles us with his informative and witty Uprising podcast, which he co-hosts sometimes with the great Tim Donner, Scott Cosenza. Scott, in June 2021, the price for a pound of chocolate chip cookies was $4.07. A year later, how much are consumers with sweet tooths spending?
Are these the Tates, the good ones? That's the green package one. If you're going to buy a chocolate chip, I mean, I could talk about this for half an hour at least. All right. What chocolate? I mean, is this a Chips Ahoy situation? Where are we going? I need some clarification.
This show relies on government data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which provides us with a general accounting of chocolate chip cookies.
Again, I feel like we're listening to a disclaimer with Andrew.
I'm going to go with a 22% increase on that, and let's call it $3 even.
And how about you, Mr. Charles, as you and your Mrs. Keisha King enjoy chocolate chip cookies down in Florida?
You've got food on the mind for some reason. First it was strawberries. Now we're talking about cookies, coffee. What did you say it was last year?
Andrew's hungry.
I've yet to eat today so far, but it's $4.07 a year ago.
$4.07.
I'm going to go $4.75. By the way, just to be clear, I said $3. I meant $4.75. That's my new adjusted chocolate chip cookie.
I don't think you can play that way. You get one shot at it there.
It happened already.
I'm going to go with $4.99. The
answer is $4.57 a pound. That is up more than 12% from a year ago. With the way inflation is, this is the way the cookie crumbles. So that is it for another edition of The Price Ain't Right, the game show that allows us to delight in the good old days of 2021, when inflation was not decimating households across the nation, and allows your host, Andrew Moran, to plug his Swamponomics videocast, which you can find on LibertyNation.com. Thank you. And on a more somber note, former Red Sox outfielder Andrew Benintendi has been traded to the New York Yankees. Funeral for yours truly. Thank you.
Oh boy. Okay, well, that's it for this episode of Just for Fun. Thanks, panel. And remember, folks, don't attempt this chaotic segment at home. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all, as well as Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Thank you for tuning in, and remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. Join us on the Member Zone, just $17.76 for the year. Special thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank Diorio. I'm Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, where truth is making a comeback.